Higgins getting us underway then. Mike Hallett alongside me, Philip Studd, in the commentary box for this one. And Higgins has got a lot to live up to, Mike, from 12 months ago after that stunning victory against Judd Trump in the final 10-9 from 7-2 behind.
One of the best finals I've ever seen. One of the best performances from John Higgins as well. Yes, he'd love to come here and keep a hold of that trophy. But Mike Dunn here, you don't see a lot of Mike on our screens actually, but he's a very dangerous player. You know, he's got a lot of scalps under his belt actually, and John, a strong favourite in this match. He's actually 6-1 on. Mike at 7-2 against, but the head-to-head, there's only one previous meeting between them. That was a couple of years ago when it was in one of the PTCs. John Higgins won that one 4-0. So you would expect John to come through this encounter.
Mike Dunn actually turned pro a year before Higgins, way back in 1991. He's currently ranked at 64 in the world as the white finds the yellow pocket. Has been as high as 32.
No cameras, no flash.
But never higher than that. But he did make a 147 break in qualifying for last year's German Masters, so that underlines what a talented player Dunn can be, and Higgins, I'm sure, will be paying him the utmost respect today.
Yes, Mike here from the northeast, and red car just outside Middlesbrough. It's been around quite a while now, Mike Dunn. One big shot today, though, of course, Phil, was Joe Perry got beat by the wildcard player Wang Yuchen.
Yeah, Perry, a former World Championship semi-finalist, of course.
Because everybody was writing up, because the winner of that one plays Neil Robertson tomorrow now. They're all thinking that they'll be playing together, practice partners in the club in Cambridge. But unfortunately for Joe, it didn't happen today, and we've seen it so many times in these wildcard encounters here in China.
6.
Yes, and Robertson against Yu Chen will be our feature match first up tomorrow morning here on Eurosport.
Well, a little bit straight on this red. I don't know if he can get back for the pink here for the centre. That's what he's tried, and he's done well actually. That was good cueing. So that enough from John Higgins has given Mike an early chances in this opening frame. He'll try and get back for this red, I think, near the, well, next to the black. I know he's holding for one of the others. I think he wants to try and get rid of that one. I'm not quite sure if it will go actually. We'll check on that a little bit later. Referee Paul Collier just checking the pink spot. If not, it'll go on to the yellow. But of course we had the 6 Reds Championship in Thailand a few days ago, but of course we're back to the norm now with the 15 Reds. This is a full-blown ranking event, lots of points available, lots of money.
Yeah, £425,000 total prize pot, with 80,000 of that going to the champion, who will be crowned on Sunday evening, so lots at stake here.
Might see Mike go into the bunch. If the red near the black doesn't go, he'll try and open them up. Hang on.
Wow.
Well, that's always a possibility.
14, John Higgins 5.
Still unlucky though.
Frustration for Dunn, because Higgins, having gone in off at the start of this frame, had presented him with a chance to build a really sizable lead. Not to be.
Yeah, you're just looking for full ball contact, aren't you? Not the glancing blow, because that does happen, but normally with the pink on the spot, these lines are going full into the pink. But, well, John's got a couple of pots on here, but from distance. Hasn't quite settled yet. It's early doors in this first round proper encounter.
Two bites at the cherry now then for Mike Dunn, and only 18 points to show for them.
Yeah, that was another good chance to get back in. Well, this is just a question of where the white's going to finish here. He might be colliding into one or two reds. Well, he's played it well. He's played it with a little bit of check side and a good cannon to get onto the blue, but he's got to go in and out of bulk here. And as we often see, you can cannon into those bulk colours. He's done well. I think the red and the black are blocking each other. I don't think the red goes, and I don't think the black goes either. So at the moment, these boys are having to work hard to put something together, especially with the pink down the other end of the table as well. Well, the way John's played that, and obviously the black would go, but unfortunately, he's cannon into the red.
Pink ball. John Higgins, 7.
Let's have a look at Hawkeye's view. Well, that's not very inviting. It needs a good return to get the white back into bulk. And that's the non-hitting area. Oh, great shot. It was a good return.
Tremendous cueing. So tight to the cushion as well.
Yeah.
No margin for error whatsoever.
And that little cannon on the green has given him a shot on the brown here.
I guess it's a measure, Mike, of the strength and depth of the game that Mike Dunn, talented player that he is, hasn't achieved more in the game. Mentioned at the top of the programme that 32 is his highest ranking, and he clearly is a gifted player. But so many gifted players on the circuit these days that you really have to have something extra special to reach the very top of the ranking.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, his best ever performance in the ranking event, the last 16, and back in 2008 actually, in the Bahrain Championship, also in the Malta Cup 2005. You say he has been around quite a while, but it becomes well, if you start missing those, you're going to win, lose more than you win. Actually,
well, that's 3 good chances now, isn't it, in this first frame alone, and just the 23 points accumulated.
The other thing is as well is the fact that once you start you will get chances against the top players, but if you don't take them, they'll suddenly click into gear and they will punish you. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, you're right. It's not easy. There is depth in the game. It separates the good players from the great players. What's drive, ambition, work ethic.
Well, one good pot here from Higgins, and you'd think he'd have a great chance.
Well, I do believe, Phil, looking at John Higgins, that this is another new cue.
8.
Because you are the eagle-eyed spotter of the variant grains that these
not
cues
quite
have.
an anorak, but I think that looks like a maple cue to me.
Not quite an anorak, definitely an anorak.
But that's a maple cue, and he's been using an ash cue. And we talked about the grains. He used to like the grains coming towards him, and the last one, the grain was going away, the feathers.
So this is 3. This is.
Well, that's definitely maple. That's not the same cue he's been using in previous tournaments. He played with the old cue in Thailand, I should say, in Bangkok about 10 days ago.
16.
So, well, that's 3 cues in the space of probably about 14 months.
It's a very modern phenomenon, isn't it? This habit that a lot of the top players have of changing their
17.
weaponry on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, in the middle of a season, I can
Would have
understand.
been unheard of, wouldn't it, back in your day?
Well, it is, because we used to finish the World Championship. You're going to change a cue. It's going to be in the summer, because normally the season was between sort of August, September to May. But now it's becoming a 10, 11, nearly a 12-month calendar. So where do you have a chance to change the cue? If you're confident with it, you have to have the courage to bring it on board. But that is definitely a new cue from John Higgins.
And Higgins, remembers, results were very encouraging at the start of the season. He won a tournament right off the bat, and he seemed very at home with the new cue, but for whatever reason would appear to have exchanged it for another, at least for the time being.
Well, let's see how he gets on with this one.
30.
Well, this would normally be a formality for Higgins. All the reds invitingly spread. Already 19 points to the good.
31.
Bit of a disturbance in the crowd there.
Yeah, sounding like a little alarm clock going off on a phone or something, I think.
A little bit of positional work to do here.
Well, that's a great shot. Back spin, side spin. I think he's got the angle here to stun over for the black as well. He's got a 24-point lead. Mike Dunn has been in, what, 2-3 times already. Didn't punish. If John gets this one right, I think this first frame is over.
36.
Well, he's took the red in the corner. That's why he's finished high on the black.
Yes, he didn't strike that quite as sweetly as he intended, did he? In fact, just for a moment, I think his heart might have been in his mouth, but should still be okay.
Yeah, he's just dropped this in. He's bound to be on a red. Ooh, too thin. So the chance goes begging.
Well, that was directly as a result of failing to pot the red as cleanly as he would have expected, leaving the black a little trickier than it would otherwise have been, and as you see, overcutting it to the far jaw. So a reprieve for Mike Dunn, who must have thought that frame was gone. Can he pinch it now? This is his fourth chance. He doesn't want the kiss. Oh my goodness, it never rains, but it pours. No wonder he's shaking his head. Well, 4 chances Mike Dunn has had in this frame, and you've got to take them against a player like Higgins. Scrappy old opening frame then. Mike Dunn has had 4 good opportunities, has failed to capitalise on any of them. And Higgins has just potted the key ball there.
No, this is frame ball now. Yeah, I don't understand why Mike played it that way, because there was a chance stunning off that other red. If he'd have played it plain ball, Phil, he might have nudged the other red into the middle of the table and still be on the black. As it is, it's costing the frame.
9.
Well, it might be a new cue, but he looks fairly comfortable with it. Table looks fast. That's a good sign on the first day. It's only going to get quicker and quicker as the week goes on. Well, it doesn't really matter missing the yellow. He's done enough.
Yellow stays out, but Mike Dunn stays in his chair. So a scrappy opener, hatfuls of chances for both players, but Higgins took more of his, and he has the first frame on the board. Higgins leads by 1 frame to 0. He needs 4 more for a place in the next round, and we'll have the second frame for you live after this short break.
Well, yeah, just a little discussion there between, that's a bad break-off shot as well. That's the last thing you wanted to do, is allow John straight in early on in the second. Little discussion about the cue ball, I think, between the referee and the players, but I think they seem happy at the moment. If they're going to change either the cue ball or the set of balls, it has to be agreed by both players. It's not the referee's decision, it's the player's decision. But well, John will be fairly happy, I think, winning that opening frame.
1.
And he's in early again. He's just got a trace of side on the white there. It's taken him away from the green. He has the blue to the corner. Might lay the snooker though.
John Higgins 1.
Oh, that looks wide. Well, that's a mile away. That will go back.
Foul. Never miss. John Higgins 4.
Complete misjudgment by Dunn there. And he's looking exasperated. I think he's probably still thinking about that first frame and wondering why he couldn't make more of the chances he had.
Well, to hit the side of the pack, he's got to miss the left-hand middle. Just this side of it, actually, to have any chance. It was too far down the cushion, first cushion. That's a better angle. That's better. Well played.
Acknowledged by Higgins.
Well, it makes all the difference coming through the bold colours there. Again, a little tap on the table. If he caught the yellow, then there was an easy red on for John here to the right. It's still on, but much tougher now. You might just put the white to the top cushion off that red.
Foul.
Well, not in the
White
pocket.
and full.
Didn't want that, of course.
A little bit hit and miss from Higgins. Did enough to win the first frame, not convincingly.
Another chance here, but again, it's from distance. Well played.
Well, he's already knocked in a couple of outstanding reds from distance in this match. It's been capitalising on those chances that's been the problem.
Yeah, just got to score heavier. It's as simple as that. You do get the chances, but you must make the most of them. Well, too far. Obviously played on the red, nearest the black. Might still take it on, but it's risky. He could use the pack actually to stay on the black if he feels brave enough. Nice pot, but he's left the white near the cushion. Now, will he take the black on? It's tough to get onto the next red. Well, these are missable. Especially having to play them with a bit of pace. Well cued, that was bang in the middle. He deserves to be on something here, and unfortunately, I don't think he is. Well, that deserved more.
13.
He's potting the difficult balls. It's the more routine ones that have been the problem, but a little unlucky there not to get position after a very well cued black. But there's no doubt, Mike, is there, that with these conditions so lightning fast in the modern game, it takes players longer to adjust when they first come into a match. It takes that little bit longer to get the pace of things because it is so quick.
Yeah. We see a lot of that in the PTC events when obviously amateurs are allowed to enter as well. And they get themselves on the TV table and it takes a while to adjust.
Oh, there's a bit of luck for Higgins. I think he may well have covered some of those reds.
Well, enough not to be able to take a pot on, but he can play a safety off one of them. Oh, well, there's a bonus. I was about to say, or get the fluke. And he's got the shot on the blue to the middle.
You see the unplanned kiss off the black, sending the red into the pocket, but once again it's a question of how many he can make from that bit of fortune.
Well, the bed here looks lightning fast.
6. Mike Dunn 6.
Well, you couldn't get any closer. I still thought that was going to drop.
Got a side on that cue ball, but he misjudged the angle of the pocket, of the red I should say, by a distance. It missed the pocket by a long way. Yet another chance then for Mike Dunn, and well, there have been years gone by where you wouldn't have got this many chances in a match against Higgins, never mind a frame and a bit.
Eight. 9. 14. 15. 20.
Yeah, Mike hasn't quite got to grips with the pace of the table so far. He's overhitting things a little. Has also, he's done so there, but he should be able to run through the other two reds for the black. Well played. And this is a great chance though to level up the match. Best of 9, and there'll be an interval after the first 4 frames.
$28.
46-point lead here. Plenty of reds in the open.
29. 34. 35.
'Well, he's underhit that one this time. He's played on the red just below the pink.
40.
Still has one to the centre, but he's not quite over the line yet. The 67 on, and he's only got a 58-point lead. So he's just put himself under a little bit of pressure here to continue this break. Just a quick shot there of Ryan Day on table 2.
The Welshman up against Lu Ning of China, just 19 years of age, is Lu. Day now 33. Keep you in touch with developments in that one.
An even younger lad this morning, couldn't believe it, Phil, could we? A lad called Yuan Zhizhong, we're playing Zhao Yudong, 13 years of age.
And trust me, he looked barely out of short trousers. The youngest looking 13-year-old I've ever seen. Oh no, well that could be absolutely crucial.
Mike Dunn, 40.
Well, he was smartly dressed, let's put it that way. He had all the gear. Somebody suggested to me it was his school uniform, not quite sure, but it looked very smart, didn't he? 13 years of age.
Mike Dunn then, having missed the tricky cut to right centre. He has a healthy lead, but it's not a decisive one. 58 points the difference, but still 67 there. And Higgins, as Dunn acknowledges, has played a decent safety.
Yeah, I think this red on the right hand side there might be available, but still needs a good pot from there. And he's just playing the safety. But it was the bad positional shot for Mike from that blue to red. And if he'd just got that one right, I think it would have been into the third frame now.
Yes, and if Higgins could get an opportunity to get back in and steal this frame, it would be a real hammer blow, wouldn't it, for Mike Dunn, who could have made a very strong case for leading 2-0.
It's not the abilities on the green bays, Phil, is it? It's the mental strengths that the top players have got. They sort of just break people down, don't they?
Higgins vastly experienced in the big moments. And we see the hawk-eye view of Mike Dunn's next shot. Snookered on a couple of reds. Shaded area denoting the area where he can't actually see a ball. So the bottom red does go, but it's another very tough pot. Could be a frame winner, however. Well, he went for the top red instead, and he very nearly got it.
It's not bad. Yeah, he's just said sorry, actually. He's got away with that.
Forced into an attacking shot there, had to go for it, really. They say fortune favours the brave. Well, you see that red does go to right centre. It's a tough one, though.
No,
he's playing safe.
Yeah, sorry, Phil, I'm going to say. There's no value in that, is there? Well, he's tried to nudge the black into play there, and he's left that same red on to the centre pocket, I think, for Mike Dunn. You can see the idea, but he could have played it better. He was hoping to leave the white near the top cushion and bring the black into play.
He's also pushed another red safe, which doesn't help his cause.
Yeah, and we've already seen this red. This red does go to the centre, and if he can stun out for the pink, it should win him the frame. Well, again, he's been fortunate there. He's blocked the pocket of the red to the yellow corner pocket. He's left this one on near the pink spot, but it's a tough pot from there. John just looking to get in here, really. This would be some clearance. Well, there's the opening red. He's got an angle on the pink to nudge this one away from this right-hand cushion. Might go down for the one near the bull cushion.
Higgins has conjured a few amazing clearances in his time. I recall one against Ronnie O'Sullivan in the final of the Masters, which he ended up winning. A match that he almost certainly had lost, but for some real wizardry. And what a shot that was to release a couple of reds.
Yeah, you just read my mind, actually. I remember, was it the red that dropped into the right-hand centre? It's the red or the blue? I think it was the red. Only just got there. I remember that that clearance. It was incredible.
It was the definition of dead weight, that particular red, wasn't it?
Yeah. 30. And that was a very clever shot, bringing those two reds into the open. He's only got the other one now on the side cushion he's got to worry about, and he's got the angle here to nudge it. So if John gets this one right, then Mike Dunn will be concerned, because it would be a definite chance to win this second frame. Now he's just had a look at the angle, whether he can drop in behind this red and just drop it into the centre for the blue. Might play to nudge it. Gone for the cannon. Well, he's got underneath it, and it won't go into the corner. That could be end of break.
20.
And had it gone correctly, it could have been end of frame for Mike Dunn. So there's still some way to travel in this one.
Oh, that's a clever shot.
John Higgins,
Just look at
20.
that. Brilliant.
Full ball snooker on the two remaining reds. A couple of minutes ago, Mike Dunn looked a certainty to level the match. Not so now.
Well, again, it's one of those situations where these reds are fairly easy to hit, but it's getting them safe.
Element of hit and hope about this.
Foul. And a miss. John Higgins,
That
5.
could be very costly.
Well, the miss has been called, but the red is on. So John might not take the miss on this occasion.
Higgins continuing to whittle away at that lead. 33 the difference, but 32 the difference, I should say. 35 remaining after this brown. So plenty of points to play with. Has he snookered himself on the potting angle? I think he's okay.
Yes, just. He was a little concerned. Just going back to the cue, actually, Phil, I'm surprised that John's gone to maple because players have preferences and he's always used an ash cue. I know he's coming to his twilight years in his career, fair enough, but he's got 2 or 3 years in him yet, but it's amazing that he's switched to a different wood.
Well, maybe that's just it. The fact that in his 39th year, having been there and done it all, he's achieved everything there is to achieve in the game. He's looking for a new challenge and perhaps a complete change of cue in terms of the type that he's always played with is part of freshening up his game. Could be a mental thing. Just something to give him a fresh focus, a fresh impetus. Who knows?
Doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Been there, done it all, got the t-shirts.
I just wonder if Ronnie O'Sullivan's resurgence in the last 12 months or so, certainly at the World Championship, and with signs that his mental strength is as strong as ever in partnership with Dr. Steve Peters, who's done sterling work to keep the Rockets' mental demons at bay. We've seen him win his 5th world title. Higgins, of course, has 4, and I just wonder whether that's given him a little bit of impetus to try and at least match O'Sullivan's tally.
I'm sure it has. Meanwhile, he's still in great position here to steal this second frame.
Well, this is going to hurt Mike Dunn a lot if Higgins pulls off the comeback. He looked a certainty to win the second frame. He should have won the first as well.
Well, he's got the perfect angle to come back for the black here. Well, it could be a question, especially if he knocks this in for 2-0, Phil, that we might see John Higgins just go off into the distance, especially if he knocks this in. It could become 3-0.
Great comeback from Higgins. He trailed by 58 points. He looked a certainty to lose that frame, but he's battled his way back. And Mike Dunn, who should have took the first and should have took the second, instead finds himself 2-0 behind. A tale of missed opportunities thus far for the underdog Mike Dunn on this, the first day of the Shanghai Masters Snooker. Up against former world #1 and defending champion John Higgins. Dunn has had golden opportunities to take the first 2 frames, but it's Higgins who enjoys a 2-frame cushion. He's 3 away from a place in the next round, and a great fight back from Higgins in the previous frame. 58 points adrift. The Reds far from ideally positioned. He played a wonderful shot to release a couple of the awkward Reds and eventually chipped himself away at that deficit and managed to steal the frame on the final black. Didn't intend to catch the mid-pocket bumper, however. But Mike Dunn will know that he's had the opportunities and he simply hasn't been able to put the frames away. Sometimes you don't get them with a player like Higgins. One good opening red and he can clear up and there's nothing you can do, but it hurts so much more when the chances have been in your hands and you've let them slip. So it's a mental battle now for Dunn to keep believing. Just the one meeting between this pair in the past. Higgins whitewashing Mike Dunn. That was in a PTC event back in 2011. Another Hawkeye view here after that good safety from Higgins. Well, there's nothing wrong with Mike Dunn's long potting today. He's managed to sink some really good balls from distance. He has struggled with his positional play, however, getting the pace of this lightning fast cloth. And this is a very thin cut. 115 degrees. Whether that enlightens you or not, I don't know, but there we go. Well, there you see how thin it was, careering into the reds, and look where the green's gone. Unbelievable. Well, he hasn't enjoyed a lot of luck, it has to be said. He's gone in off a couple of times. One of those days, Mike. I think you must have got out of bed the wrong side.
Well, I think I'd get a taxi back to the hotel. I wouldn't walk back.
I think even the crowd can see the funny side. I don't think Mike Dunn's laughing, but it's all going horribly wrong for him right now.
It's a crazy game at times, isn't it? John's had the nice kiss there just down the black. You know, you just sometimes you stand out there, you think you could be there all day. You just think it's not going to happen today.
Well, it was a wonderful long red to get in,
and
he played the thin cut on the black, opening up the bunch of reds very nicely, only to see the green disappear.
This still needs potting though. Oh well, that was a mile away.
Yes, it's not as though Higgins has been on fire. Wonderful positional shot in the previous frame, as I mentioned, to release the awkward reds, which helped get him back into that one, but he has missed a few as well.
Well, on fire, Steve Maguire. He's in the same quarter. If he comes through and John Higgins, it would be an All-Scottish quarter-final. He's got Zhao Yudong, but there's Matthew Stevens there, and Ali Carter. And Mark Davis against Ali Carter. Let's not forget Mark Davis has just won the Six Reds Championship in Thailand, so he's full of confidence, and he's going to give Ali Carter a bit of a challenge there, I'm sure.
Retaining his title, of course. Back-to-back Six Red triumphs for Davis, who's playing the best snooker of his life, now into his 40s. Ali Carter, of course. Wonderful to hear that he's beaten his battle with testicular cancer, and great to see him back on the table where he belongs. So lots to look forward to in Shanghai this week. Oh, that sounded like a heavy contact. Couldn't do any damage.
Well, I know it's only the third frame, but really Mike Dunn has to put this frame on the board. If he loses this one as well, this could become 5-0. 2-1, he's back in this.
7.
He did contemplate retirement earlier this year, Mike Dunn, before deciding to press on. Had some back trouble as well a while back, which forced him to alter his stance. That must have been a setback.
13.
Yeah, and his prize money last season was only £1,500. It was against John Higgins, who made 240. I mean, John's made over £6 million on the table. I mean, Mike's been, what, pro 22 years? Just under 300,000. There's a big gulf between these
80.
two players, and in every aspect, of course. And, you know. But as I've said, Mike he's one of those players. He's dangerous. If you don't bring a good game to the table, he can certainly beat you.
$23. 24.
As Mike mentioned earlier, one or two other matches ongoing with Ryan Day of Wales, 1-0 to the good against the home favourite Lu Ning. Zhao Xintong has taken the first frame against Martin Gould. Dave Gilbert is 1-0 to the good against Fang Xiaoman.
I'm going to leave those to you.
I thought you might. It's very kind of you. Very considerate. So much talent, though, up and coming in China. And the wildcard round affords the opportunity to get a glimpse of the potential stars of the future, and in turn gives them an opportunity to taste the big time. Can be a real baptism of fire, and you need a lot of confidence to be able to bring your practice game to the table when you're inexperienced in front of a crowd and playing a top player. Steep learning curve, Mike.
26.
It is. You know, it could take you 2 or 3 years just to settle into the ranks. At least now they've given you get a 2-year exemption. I mean, when it was just 1 year, it was impossible to stay on, really. From sort of, well, that was tucked in the corner, but you know, to go from 96, when it was 96, it's 128 now, but it was 96 to 64, 42. And that was virtually impossible in 1 season. But now it's a 2-year exemption, so you know, you can put yourself into a good position the first year and then consolidate your position in the second year. So you should stay on. If you're good enough, you should stay on. Well, if you don't stay on after 2 years, well, I'm afraid you deserve probably to come off.
Can you remember how you felt when you first walked out in front of the TV cameras for your first professional match?
Shaking. I think it was the UK actually, 1980, something like 79, 80 I think it was. I think around 79, so I think it would have been 80 at the Guildhall in Preston.
One of the great snooker venues.
Yeah, played Patsy Fagan there, and then I played really well, beat Patsy there in the first round, and I played Steve Davis in the second round.
Nice easy draw then.
Yeah, well, I've made 4 good breaks in the first 4 frames, and I was 4-0 down. And I thought, oh, this is Steve Davis then, is it? Because he was just a machine, wasn't he?
Time for a career change.
Well, I played well to beat Patsy Fagan. I won 9-4, and I thought, Steve Davis, bring it on. I soon found out who he was.
Patsy wasn't too shabby either.
Absolutely.
Former UK champion himself.
Yeah. And of course, when you're a young kid and you're up and coming, you're full of confidence, aren't you? There's that cockiness about you and all that, and you think, come on then, let's have it. But
and you did.
Well, Steve Davis was just a different class. And the rest is history. And of course, certain Mr. Hendry came along and raised the bar once more.
Davis is still going. Hendry, of course, has hung up his cue. Another stupendous long pot from Mike Dunn. You've got to wonder how he's 2-0 behind, but he's got a great opportunity again to get a frame on the board.
Great red, but he still needs another colour. He's only 50 points the lead with 51 on, so does he take this green on? He's taken the brown on. That also is frame ball.
Big shot this then for the underdog. And it goes, well cued. I'm sure he played the brown because he knew that if he'd missed it, he wasn't risking leaving Higgins 61. With a gettable red. But he now needs a snooker, does the 4-times world champ. Pressure off. Mike Dunn closes out the frame. Well, he certainly deserves to have a frame on the board.
Well, this has been a good contribution, really. As you said, Phil, before, he could have won frames 1 and 2.
Should have done, arguably.
But this should give him a little lift in confidence.
And perhaps beginning to find the pace of the table now, which will help.
67.
It's been a good break, though, to put the disappointment of the manner in which he lost the first 2 frames out of his mind with a frame-winning break like this. That shows some character.
I think you might see John Higgins give this next frame, though, his full attention to make it 3-1 at the interval.
Mike Dunn 74 on the frame.
The highest break of the match so far then goes to the underdog Mike Dunn, who's got a frame on the board, and he's geeing himself up as well. He knows he should be in front in this match, but at least he's back in the mix. John Higgins leads by 2 frames to 1. The final frame then before the mid-session interval. John Higgins having taken a 2-0 lead, winning both of those frames against the run of play. The second on the final black after he trailed by more than 50 points with the Reds not ideally placed. Mike Dunn should really have won those opening 2 frames, but an excellent break of 74 has got the underdog on the board. So this another big frame. If Dunn could level the match, that would give him a real boost going into the 15-minute break.
That was a good safety from John there, but there's a fairly easy return back to the ball here for Mike. Just clipping off the edge of the pack, as you see there. Well, the Reds are opened. And he has a shot at this red on the right-hand side. It's not easy. We might see John take this on. Well, that's great cueing. There's hardly any angle on that red at all. And just look at that for a shot. He's got back for the blue as well. That was top draw.
Magnificent cueing from Higgins, and well, perhaps he has been galvanised by Mike Dunn's response in that 3rd frame. Break of 74.
Yes, the 4 times world champion wants to put this one on the board and just build the base towards a victory here. He doesn't want to get embroiled in a match that he knows that he should win fairly easily. You know, 2-all, things can happen. 3-1, you expect him to push on. That's no disrespect to Mike Dunn, but we know that really John is a strong favourite in this one.
7.
Well, he has very happy memories of Shanghai, doesn't he? It was easily the highlight of the last campaign. His triumph here in the final against Trump. Made a 147 on his way to winning by the odd frame, having been 5 adrift in what was otherwise a disappointing season.
Well, there were certain polls that we were doing at the end of last season, you know, play of the year, performance of the year, and I put John's final win against Judd here last year as the performance of the year. That session, that second session he played, it was just unbelievable.
Well, it's not like Trump did a lot wrong.
Mm.
And I think Judd was the first to accept afterwards that he'd been beaten by just a wonderful performance.
It was just, John just went into the stratosphere.
The strange thing about it was that it was very atypical of the season. He wasn't able to build on that success with any consistency thereafter. And the first round loss at the Crucible would have hit him hard. It was the first time I'd heard Higgins in the post-match press conference talking about how long he had left in the game and whether he still had it.
21.
The mental strength, the ability to pot the tough balls under pressure. These were all new things to hear from Higgins, but as we've mentioned already, a couple of new cues already this season. He's determined, I think, to get back to the very highest echelons. And after all he's achieved in the game, you wouldn't bet against him succeeding.
Well, you wouldn't blame him for retiring now, would you, really?
28.
But he's not that sort of animal. And as you've mentioned before, Phil, earlier on, that spurred on by the exploits of Ronnie O'Sullivan in the World Championship this year. What's Ronnie's 37 and John's 39, so yeah, I think John's got a couple of years in him yet.
Well, a lot of their players into their 40s now are producing their best ever form. Mark Davis, who's just won the 6 Reds World Championship, is a case in point. And there are a few others. Age not necessarily a barrier to success.
I think Stephen Hendry retired, what was he, 42 wasn't he when he retired, 41, 42? He just felt that he couldn't produce that high level on a consistent basis anymore, and he's one of those sort of people, Phil, that he didn't just want to make up the numbers, did he? If he couldn't perform at the highest level, he thought, well, that's it then.
And I think even more significantly for Hendry was the fact that he actually hadn't done it for many years. If you think that the last of his world titles came in the previous century, and he hadn't won one of the big three in the current millennium, that will give you some idea about how Hendry's level had dropped from his golden days.
36.
I don't think it was so much an age thing as the fact that it had been a long time, a very long time, since he'd won a really big title, and I think he got fed up of coming second best because it's so alien to him.
Well, at the end of the day, you've got to admire him for his honesty.
Yeah, well, I think for my money, still the greatest of all time. You only have to look at the stats to see that. O'Sullivan would be regarded as the greatest natural talent, but Hendry surely the greatest winner. Now there's some delicate finger work required from Paul Collier to get that pink directly in a line with the black, and it's spot. But Higgins is looking good here to extend his lead again.
Yes, and he's keeping our referee busy here. He's going to have to respot that pink there once more. Won't thank him for that.
All the other spots taken, so it has to go as near as possible to its spot in a direct line. I always marvel at the concentration required of these top referees. It's such a tough job mentally. Snooker is a mental game, and it's no different for the officials.
Well, they've got great respect for them, and the players have got great respect. They do a great job. I mean, Paul Collier is one of the best. Nice guy to boot as well. And you know, they're unsung heroes, aren't they? You know, they've produced, they do their good. They've got to keep houses in order as well. You know, you get a few raucous crowds and whatever. You've got to keep the crowd sort of in check sometimes. And they have a responsibility to these lads and lasses, of course. Don't forget, Rhiannon Evans is on the main tour. So, and but in fact, I think she's quite on. She's on the main tour. I might be wrong there, but she's just playing the PTCs.
Well, she qualified for a major ranking event earlier this season. By a distance, the best female player in the world right now, Rhiannon Evans. Looking to make her mark in the men's professional game.
Well, no doubt the best lady player I ever saw was Alison Fisher. She was a terrific player.
Not too shabby at pool either. It's made rather a good career for herself in the United States. What a shot that was from Higgins. This looks like being a big one. And he's very perceptibly upped his game here, Higgins, having lost that third frame. One or two careless errors from the Wizard of Wishaw, even though he enjoyed that 2-0 lead. 64. But he's really on his mettle here. And who would bet against a 537th career century?
65.
7 of those have been maximum breaks. One, of course, coming in the final 12 months ago against Trump. Well, that was frame ball. 73. But Higgins is eyeing a big century.
Yeah, I just thought this might happen, actually, having lost that last frame. You expected John to come out all guns blazing in this one to make it 3-1 at the interval. You'll be looking to make it 4-1 in about 20 minutes or so. And then he's taken total control of this first round match here between these two players.
81.
One of the favourites this week. Always is, going into every tournament really.
Either Mark Davis or Ali Carter awaits the winner of this one. And potential, as Mike mentioned earlier, of Stephen Maguire, or perhaps Matthew Stevens.
87.
So a pretty tough top half of the draw there. Sean Murphy came through earlier on today against Yu Delu.
93.
And that was a victory Murphy needed because he lost out in qualifying for the inaugural Indian Open, which is coming up on Eurosport in the near future from Delhi. So a big win there for Murphy.
94.
But this has been perfection from Higgins.
Well, I can't see him missing this, so it will be century 537.
Great stuff from the Wizard. He's still got it.
100.
And the crowd packed to the rafters here in Shanghai have thoroughly enjoyed this exhibition of skill from one of the all-time greats. Well, the red stays out, so it's not a big century, but it's an even 100 nonetheless, and it's more than enough to give John Higgins a commanding 3-1 lead at the mid-session interval. Mike Dunn will reflect on chances missed. He should at least be level. As it is, it's Higgins who leads 3-1. He needs 2 more after the mid-session break. That mini session with Higgins taking it by 3 frames to 1.
Thank you, frame
Wonderful
5.
century
John
break
Higgins
from the Wizard of Wishaw in the final frame before the interval, but in truth he should have lost the 3 before that. Mike Dunn not able to clinch the chances that he had. We've just watched Ryan Day produce an excellent clearance to move 3-0 in front of Lu Ning on one of the neighbouring tables. And we'll keep you in touch with that match as well. But back with the live action here, and a frame that surely Mike Dunn must win. Caught that much more thinly than he intended, and relieved to see the cue ball wobble in the jaws and stay on the table.
Years of practice. Great return from John Higgins.
Well, Mike Dunn has been very generous in his praise of Higgins' good shots today, and perhaps that's part of the problem. Perhaps he has a bit too much respect for Higgins. Mike, you know, obviously we know what a great player John Higgins is, but when you go out there, you've got to really believe you can beat the guy, even if you're odds against, and perhaps he just feels a little in awe of the great man.
Yeah, possibly. It's a definite that he's got to win this frame, because if he goes 4-1 behind, you've got to say it's pretty much all over. Well, I suppose you can afford to be Mr. Nice Guy off the table, but not on it.
No, the likes of Davis and Hendry were ruthless, weren't they, at their peak? They didn't just like to beat players, they liked to demolish them.
Well, he's got away with that somewhat, John Higgins there. I don't know whether Mike can see enough of this red near the blue to take it on. Possibly. Well, that tells us that he can. That's the non-hitting area. So we might see Mike Dunn take this red on. Well, he's looking at playing cushion first here and try and get the white back into bulk. Well, he's done pretty good there. That's a very clever shot.
Higgins' turn to acknowledge a good safety.
He's not taking the right-hand red on, he's playing safety off one of the others. Needs some cover, and I think he's got it. Well, having said that, I think he can swerve around this yellow and cushion first, pot the red. Yes, he can certainly do that. It's just a question of where the white's going to finish. Well, he'll be happy with his work so far, but he'll be wanting to win this frame as well and really put the pressure on. But this red here only needs a nudge. Again, it's where the white's going to finish. I think he's trying to get on the black here. That's a fraction too hard. That's a great effort. Unlucky. He has the blue, but it's going away from the reds. That was probably an inch away from being perfect on that black. Yes, no good. Well, I'd say I've already noticed that this bed of this #1 table is very quick indeed.
Yes, even by modern standards, it's a fast one. And that was a very good pot, particularly played at pace to try and get back to the reds.
6.
Well, a very fine pot on the blue, but he missed the red by a long way. And he had no sort of position either.
And he's let John Higgins right back in here, and he could be punished. These guys are too good to give chances like this. A lot of side on the cue ball. I wasn't sure what John was trying to play on there. Unless he was trying to get on the red nearest the green, but he's out of position. Well, he feels he can see enough of this red to take it on to this right corner. But again, it's one of those, he's not quite sure where the white's going to finish, even if he gets the pot. Might get on the black. Let's see. Well, he's got a shot on the pink and the black, actually. I think pink would be favourite. That's okay. He's got one to the centre. And these reds are just gradually opening up here. And within 2 or 3 shots, it could be a frame-winning opportunity. 4-1 for John Higgins. That's a long road back for Mike Dunn.
14.
Especially against a player of this class. He doesn't normally let you off the hook when he's got you there.
No, he's been very clinical down the years. It's not been vintage Higgins today by any means, but he has that ability, like all the great players do, of just upping his level when he senses danger. Did so in the 4th frame after Dunn had gone on the board with an excellent break of 74.
Yes, they've got very good at just building themselves into tournaments, aren't they? They'll get through the first couple of rounds, you know, and say, okay, fine, when there's a win, but I'm still in the tournament. It's like the World Championship. I just feel that, you know, the top stars are so vulnerable in that opening round. But once they get to the best of 25s and 33s, you know, in the final 35, then they're really on form. And of course, the remarkable story of Ronnie O'Sullivan coming back last year, taking a year out and winning his 5th world title.
18.
Something to spare.
Yep. He wasn't totally out of the game, you know, altogether. He'd been playing the Legends Tours, exhibitions, challenge matches and things. So he was working. He was playing, you know, matches. He was working in his game. It's still a great feat, though, to do that. Because it doesn't matter how good you're playing in practice. Sometimes it's about the match practice, about the matches out there, the games. And if you stay out of any sport for a little while, people just go past you. And you just wonder if you're still at that same level.
And that's why I think many people felt
36.
he was, relatively speaking, a bit of an outside bet for the world title because he'd had so little match sharpness to draw on. But as it turned out, he was able to work his way in, and in the end he won at a canter.
But there's the other side of the coin as well, Phil. He was coming in fresher than anybody else. He hadn't had a long campaign going into the World Championship.
Well, we saw the likes of Mark Selby struggle to produce his best form after a relatively arduous season. And of course, as we know, Selby's the sort of player who spends blood, sweat and tears in every shot he plays, and said afterwards he didn't feel like he had a lot left in the tank. O'Sullivan, on the other hand, when he's playing well, does it so effortlessly that you feel as though he doesn't
39.
use up great mental reserves.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But it was a magnificent achievement, and it'll be fascinating to see if O'Sullivan can replicate the sort of form he showed at the Crucible in the big events coming up.
Yes, he's not here this week, chose not to play. He's a few weeks off and whatever, and preparing for the next things ahead. But, you know, it's nice to have the choice now, Phil, isn't it? These players, it's an entry system that, as Mike Dunn looks on here, could be 4-1 in a few minutes' time for John Higgins. But nice to have the choice. 3 years ago, these boys didn't have the choice. There was only playing, what, 6 ranking events, probably 9 events. Now we've got 30 plus on the calendar. So they can look at their schedules and say, fine, I'm not going to play in that one. I'm just going to have a little bit of a refresh and then concentrate on the majors. That's fair enough.
Yes, I think for the likes of O'Sullivan, it's all about the big ones now, isn't it? Particularly the world titles. I think O'Sullivan privately, even though he might not admit it publicly, still believes he can at least match Stephen Hendry's tally. And given how well he played to win his 5th title a few months ago, you would say it was by no means an impossible feat. And it would have seemed that way just a couple of years back, given O'Sullivan's tendency to, well, lose patience if his game wasn't at its absolute peak. But he seems now to be far more forgiving of himself when things aren't going to plan, and that makes him doubly difficult to beat.
Yeah, talking about patience, this guy's got a lot of patience, a lot of determination, and it's looking like 4-1 here for John Higgins. And again, very tough for Mike Dunn to get back into this one. Full house in here to watch one of the top stars in our game.
Well, if there's one man in the game who can give O'Sullivan nightmares when it comes to the really big events, it's this guy John Higgins, who's won more than his fair share of the big matches against the Rocket.
And Ronnie has great respect for him as well, as a competitor.
78.
He's got the mental strength to take Ronnie O'Sullivan on.
79.
Well, a break of 74 gave Mike Dunn the 3rd frame. Higgins responded with a century. And if this red goes in, a good chance for back-to-back centuries for the Wizard.
But let's not forget, Phil, I know Mike Dunn could have won the first 3 frames here. He had chances in all of them. It was 2-1, and now it's about to go 4-1.
Yeah, she sensed when he lost the first 2, which he should have won, that it was always going to be very difficult for Dunn mentally as much as anything to overcome that disappointment. 95. The red drops in after thinking twice about it, and now the century is well and truly on. But since then, Higgins has moved into overdrive. There is another century. 538.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
104.
3rd on the all-time list, behind Hendry and O'Sullivan. Hendry way out in front with 775, although O'Sullivan has now passed the 700 mark, and who knows how many more the Rocket might gather before he hangs up his cue for good. But this has been vintage stuff from Higgins at the back end of his opening match here. Oh, well, the brown stays out, but the century already completed. Back-to-back centuries then for Higgins as he moves 3 clear of Mike Dunn. 4-1 is his lead. He needs just one more frame.
Well, a lot to do then for the man from Redcar. This is the Wizard of Wishaw in full control of this match here. This first round encounter, of course, John, the defending champion here this week. Well, we thought this match might sort of pan out the way it has, actually. Wow, what about that? That's outrageous. A 3-ball plant, and he's on the blue.
I think all things considered, Mike Dunn is wishing he'd stayed in the hotel this morning. It's just not gone his way today. He hasn't had a lot of luck. He's also been playing a man in excellent form in the latter stages of this match, and when you throw in a bit of good fortune as well, that's a pretty irresistible combination.
Yeah, I think the truth really of the matter is the fact that he's allowed John to find some form here, to get some table time, really, Phil, hasn't he? You know, we said that Mike had chances to win frames 1 and 2, could have won frame 3. Might have been all different, but he allowed John the table time, and well, there's only one result there after that. I'll tell you what, if John wins the match here, I mean, Mark Davis or Ali Carter in the second round, that would be a cracker. Because Mark Davis is in great form, just defended his 6 wedge championship in Thailand a few days ago. Ali Carter, we know when he turns it on, he's one of the best players in the world. So that's going to be a great match between those two, and whoever comes through that one will be a good test here for the defending champion.
With the prospect of either Matthew Stevens or Stephen Maguire potentially a little further down the line.
Well, I thought that had gone wrong, but I think he's landed on one here to the left corner.
Well, I think Higgins will, the way his new cue is performing, at least his second of the season. And it's still a relatively young campaign.
Is he after my record? 3 in the season?
21.
I'm not having that, you know. That's what I wanted to hang on to.
22.
Back to the more serious stuff though. John, I want to try and nail the match here.
29. $30.
Well, that has gone wrong, but there's still a red onto the middle. That's a poor shot from John Higgins. He's definitely played the cannon to stay on the left-hand red. And this is a lot more difficult now, and this is missable.
And position also very tricky.
Well, he's not playing it. He's playing the safety. He's prepared to wait.
John Higgins,
Well, that shot there tells you what mood he's in.
Well, he's barely made a mistake, has he, in the last 2.5 frames. Those wonderful back-to-back century breaks to put him 4-1 in front, and he was looking good to finish the job there.
But Mike's made another mistake, and it might be his last.
A poor positional shot, or safety shot I should say then, from Mike Dunn. Might have cost him this match. If Higgins can capitalise off the red. He didn't hit it cleanly though, and as a result he's lost the cue ball.
Yes, he played the cannon into the second red to stay on the black, but as you say, Phil, he's took the red in the corner of the pocket, so this might be another safety shot here. That was a great chance. He'll be annoyed with himself a little bit. All he has to do is get on the black and it's frame and match over.
John Higgins 1.
Pushing the green safe. Well, splattering of applause there, but unfortunately for him, when he's caught that yellow, he's left this red on. Now, whether John can stay on the black here, or he has some angle to get back for the blue, let's just see how he plays this. It's sort of downward striking, so is he trying to get onto the black? Now, has he gone far enough? If the black was on its spot, I would say yes. He's just got there, but only just.
By a millimetre. Now things are looking very ominous for Mike Dunn. Quick look at the scoreboard for Higgins, already 44 to the good with reds open.
Doesn't often give up these chances.
He's definitely adapted to the pace of the table very quickly today. And it is very, very fast. But he's found a great rhythm in the last couple of frames or so. And it looks set to take him over the winning line.
15.
Impressive start to his title defence. Chasing the 26th ranking title of his professional career.
$21.
Frame and match ball then. One more red to really make sure to put himself into the second round. And again, it'd be interesting to see who comes through between Mark Davis and Ali Carter, which will be John's opponent in that second round.
29.
Fairly accomplished performance here, Phil, but he hasn't really been put under pressure, has he? I mean, it's a disappointing performance from Mike, really.
One break of 74 aside. Mike Dunn has made too many mistakes
36.
to challenge Higgins. Perhaps a little in awe of his
37.
opponent. And you can hardly blame him, really, given the success that this great player has had down the years, and proving that at the age of 38 he is still a potent force.
42.
Well, the red stays out,
42.
but Mike Dunn offers his hand, and Sporting League congratulates John Higgins. That was a very impressive beginning to his campaign to retain his Shanghai Masters title in front of a packed crowd here. Higgins with back-to-back century breaks after a couple of scratchy frames at the beginning, which he probably should have lost. In the event, he won them, and then from 2-1 in front, he surged to a 5-1 victory. Higgins safely through to face either Davis or Carter in the next round.